So I thought I would add some final remarks on this play. So this was the Into the Baka, Dhunaybah, June 10th, 1982 scenario from the Sands of War. This was an Israeli force that entered the map from the south, trying to bust through a Syrian defense and get off the north side of the map. We're just about to start turn 6, where I'm going to call it off. The scenario goes for 12 turns, so I'm just about to start the turn 6. So roughly halfway through. Again, just some concluding remarks. Definitely, well, 6 turns is definitely enough for the Israelis to still win and get off the north side of the map. And 6 turns is definitely enough for the Syrians to possibly turn it around. But I do think that the battle has gone decisively against the Syrians. So, first of all, to note so far, the Syrians have been unlucky in not having their attack helicopter unit show up. So this Mi-24A could have been really useful in knocking out some of those Israeli M60A1s. But so far, bad luck, it has not shown up for the Syrians. The Israelis have lost one M60A1, but that is not a significant situation for the Israelis because they are high cohesion. They are a high cohesion force by scenario rules, so this first loss has no sizable impact. Also of note, the Israeli force is not only is it high cohesion, the Israeli force has a morale of 6. That's pretty high. It would seem to me, in my playing of the Sands of War so far, morale of 6 is pretty high. So bottom line, the Israelis are nowhere near having any adverse morale or cohesion effects, facing any significant morale or cohesion effects. On the other hand, the Syrians were very unlucky in having a failing cohesion very early on, which explains their disposition at this point in the game. So all these units, all of these troop units are pinned. Well, I'll zoom in a minute to go over those counter details. But the point is, the Israelis have general artillery support, so they can fire a map fire mission. So they don't need to have a forward observer, don't need to have a line of sight to their target. So the battle is over the village here, town of Dhunaybah. So the Israelis simply dropped, multiple HE missions on the town. And as it was, the Syrians had a major defensive position there. I think the lesson is, the general lesson is, to defend the town, you don't need to sit on the town. The Syrians probably should have been in many other places, but not in the town. So in modern warfare, at least, so I'll say at least in modern warfare, and this is reflected in the game, The Sands of War, if you're going to defend a point location like that, don't sit on the location. So the Israelis just bombed the town, and if I remember correctly, it was the losses taken from the bombardment that I think caused the cohesion failure. But in any case, the Syrians had bad luck in failing their cohesion test, and so that meant that they lost all their firing positions and pinned all the troop units, which meant that the Israelis needed to surge forward and take advantage of the fact that there was this disruption in the Syrian defense. In game mechanics, that means not only pinned troop units, but loss of firing position means that the Syrians had no reaction fire capability for a complete turn. The Israelis were in a position to exploit that, which is what they should do. I mean, even if they didn't know what happened on the other side of this ridge, if they call in a major general artillery support map fire mission, they should be ready to charge through here and try to take advantage of whatever the results were anyways. You know, it turned out that the results were significantly in favor of the Israeli forces, and they took advantage of it. So they charged through here and they basically scattered the Syrians in addition to what the cohesion failure rules called for anyways. Yeah, so the Israelis did what they should have done, and that is take advantage of this front-wide weakening of the Syrian defense. So what we have right now is the Israelis have seized the center position and taken Dhunaybah, and they've gotten to the woods where the Syrians had a significant defensive position. They're charging through the woods. They're probably going to take the woods. The Syrian unit's already pinned here. Behind him is just an FO and a Jeep. And then over here, the Syrians have basically pulled back and are trying to reestablish a defensive position. But significantly, as you can see here, the Israelis just shift their artillery to start bombing that woods, which is, you know, might as well, right? This is the artillery fire ahead of the advancing front lines, right? So this doesn't look good for the Syrians either. So now all these Syrian troop units are pinned as a result of that cohesion failure. These Syrian tanks and BMPs were pushed out into the open because of the cohesion failure. Basically because of the cohesion failure, which is not good for the Syrians, obviously. So they were in a concealed and firing position enhanced defensive line. Now they're pushed out in the open and or pinned. And over here in the woods, again, they've tried to the tank commanders over here. This means the Israeli indirect fire is coming. Yeah, this force is in fairly good condition, but now the Israeli indirect's about to start landing. So, you know, what would they do? What could they do? Burning Rex. Yeah, see, the Israelis have that have the toe-mounted Jeep. They have the anti-air half-track, and they have the indirect fire-mounted half-track. All these assets are still in play for the Israelis, and they can bring all these to bear. You know, if only the Syrian helicopter unit had arrived, maybe this one could have taken out some of these key Israeli assets. Very, very interesting scenario, very good scenario. I'm not sure, well, seems to be a bit of a challenge for the Syrians. similar to Test of Arms. Because of the lethality in the game, which I can only assume is meant to model modern warfare, which is good, which is all good. I would rather there be more morale effects rather than straight out KIAs. But actually in the future, when I come back to this game, I need to remember the regroup rules. But the point is, across the board, I think when I play modern war games, which again is probably my favorite subgenre, because of the lethality, your initial deployment is pretty critical. Yeah, bottom line. So I think the Syrians could have, I guess, deployed better. I just threw them down in a pretty quick defense, but boy, not really the best defense. Maybe the Syrians should defend in depth. Maybe that is the way to go. The Israelis, kind of what I saw about on the Israeli side is, because if you remember, this terrain is more rugged and more channelizing than normal. Basically, the Israeli vehicles have to go through these cuts in the mountain or go around the mountain entirely through this rough terrain and then wind up on the wrong side of the wadi. And Israeli troop units are significantly slowed as they move up and up the elevations. So for that reason, the Israelis really basically need to mass and punch through one or both of these cuts, and just basically make contact, take the risk of some initial losses, and then pour on with follow-on armored forces, really. So this M113 mounted Israeli infantry successfully, and again, it's probably primarily as a result of the successful indirect fire, but basically the Israelis were able to get through the cut, get to the forest, and dismount. So they're pretty much in a perfect position. So they have dismounted regular infantry to clear the woods here with their M113s in immediate support. So couldn't ask for a better situation there. Got the FO here on the rise, ready to observe more indirect fires. More meaning more than just the general support artillery. So yeah, interesting scenario. Definitely a scenario to play again. Try different dispositions, different deployments, different approaches.